find things people want to buy. It's all very hard, so that's why I'm talking tonight. So if I could go ahead and bring our very experienced, very knowledgeable, very cool and hip panelists up here. You guys can go grab a seat, and so we kind of like, I personally am over bios. Like, everybody reads a bio and it's like, okay, great. I'm so glad that you guys have done those things. So last time we did 5 fun facts and that was a bit much. So this time we're going to do 3 fun facts about each of our panelists. I'm realizing now I didn't do 3 fun facts about Christina. So I might come up with those later. I might not. I don't know. Stay tuned. So these are the fun facts about our panelists. We'll start over there. So this is Matt and Candice Gross. They own Yellow Whistle. And so they're the co-founders, and they've also been married for 8 years. So that's pretty exciting. That's not nothing. As a company, Yellow Whistle has found a lot of success through niching down to kind of focus specifically on serving companies who are in the e-commerce space. So they're going to be talking a lot tonight about e-commerce. And then this is probably the most exciting one, but they had their first baby, Atlas, last year. So I think this knowledge is specifically from social media. I think he's 4 months old. Yes, 4 months old. It's going to be on soon. Okay. So that's very exciting. Next, we have Stacy. So Stacy is an artist, and she actually, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. She actually kind of got started here at Harrison. So Lakeland High School, she went to Harrison, and that's where she got her art start. It's kind of fun because I went to Kathleen, so go Red Devils, and she still will be my friend. So that's nice of her. Through her work at Simply Creative Designing, she has worked with like a lot of high profile clients. So she's got to do some really cool things like go to Fashion Week, something somebody like me would never be invited to. So again, cool to be friends with her. And then she's also working on illustrating her own children's book. So that's really exciting, really fun. Those are 3 fun facts for Stacy. And then last but not least, we have Nikki. So before Nikki moved into like Scout and Tag that we all know and love in downtown, she actually started selling refurbished furniture at the farmer's market. So kind of humble beginnings. And then she and her husband Lamar have 2 children. Their daughter is named Scout, and their son is named Tag. Bet you didn't see that coming, huh? And then through Scout and Tag, Nikki has been a springboard for a lot of local makers by offering them just a place to start selling their goods. So she might talk about it later, but actually Bump Galetta, that was the first place where he started selling some of his art, and now he's in places like West Elm. So it's really cool, especially as Catapult, to have people like that in the Lakeland community that are helping out other entrepreneurs while still being an entrepreneur herself. So I don't know, pretty fun fact. And then there's Christina, I don't know, whatever. She's just like here. So just kidding. She's the executive director here at Catapult, and I'm not going to say anything else about her. You can read her bio online because remember, bios are really fun. So now I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to them. You're tired of hearing me talk, and I'm tired of talking. So let's give it up for our panelists and this other girl on the side.
Oh boy. Thanks, Kristen. That's always the entertaining portion, for sure. Well, thank you all for being here. We're excited. Thanks for everybody joining us online. We have a great group here, and as Kristen kind of mentioned, we were talking a little bit before this and kind of going over what we're going to talk about here tonight and learn some really interesting facts. I'm bummed that we don't have a ton of time because there are so many things that we could dive in with these guys. There's so much wealth of knowledge. So there will be some time for you guys to do some Q&A towards the end. We'll start with some questions here. But before we really dive in, it's probably helpful if you guys get to know a little bit about who they are and their companies. So why don't we start with Nikki and just give us a little quick background.
Well, hi, my name's Nikki Hunt, and I started Scout and Tag at the Downtown Farmers Market, like you heard, about 7 years ago. Kind of needed to do something, lost my job, and trying to figure out, okay, what is it? What is it that I really want to do? Do I want to go back into corporate America? Do I want to? And through a lot of prayer, and the fact that my husband had a job and it was steady, It afforded me the opportunity to delve into maybe seeing if something like this would work. And we had purchased and flipped houses in the past, and decor and design was something I was interested in. And so it was my sister who introduced me to this paint that's really popular in the market if you paint furniture, Annie Sloan chalk paint. It's been around for about 30 years and it's from Europe. And she's like, oh, you should, just paint some stuff and take it down to the farmer's market. And I'm like, because I was trying to paint a piece myself at home and it wasn't turning out well. I tried to strip it down and it was taking forever. And she's like, you don't have to even do that. Just paint it and da-da-da. So I did my first piece and I was like, oh my goodness, it was beautiful. And I was like, I did that. And I'm not really creative or artsy. So I figured anyone could do that. But so that kind of just spurred it. My neighbor threw out a piece of furniture. I dragged it across the street. And like a month later, I was at the farmer's market and sold a couple pieces of furniture. And it just kind of really snowballed from there. I didn't miss a market for a year. And then within a year, we have a 3,500 square foot retail space in downtown. And it's in the old Strand Theater building. So it's a beautiful building. It's got nice bones to it. So I think that accentuates our business. And we have 7 employees.
Great. Stacy?
Hi, everyone. I'm Stacy J. My business is Simply Creative Designing Incorporated. I'm incorporated now, so I like to use it. But I started my business, I've always been in art. As they said, I went to elementary at Rochelle School of Arts, went off to high school, then also went and got my degree in college for art as well. I studied at New World School of Arts, which is the fine arts division of the University of Florida. So it was really fun being in a big city, being a Lakeland native, growing up in Lakeland, and I internship for a design company, Republica, when I was there, and they hired me after my internship. So I spent a couple of years with Republica, and then from there, I became the art director at Fairchild Tropical Botanical Garden. And just through my experience being around other designers, Instagram had just started. It was like the wave of Instagram at the time. I actually didn't have an account, but I had a friend that kept telling me, oh my gosh, you do so well with design, and there's so many people who, they have these businesses, you should help them. And we used to laugh in the studios and stuff at people on Instagram, just watching how, a person would have a piece that really looks like it's worth maybe $500, $600, but either their website or the way that they package their branding, it never allowed them to kind of elevate to that level. So I found that could be a market for me. And I said I wanted to fill that gap. So I started my business with just a pack of business cards. I think my dad printed my cards, 1,000 business cards, and I had one client turned into 2 clients, 2 clients turned into 3. And then the demand got so high to where I actually resigned from Fairchild and continued my business continuously. So that's how I started out. But the whole purpose of my business, I just wanted to help entrepreneurs. I wanted to help people be able to charge the prices that they wanted to charge, have the product that they know that was good quality, and then also have quality visuals that were parallel with that.
My name is Matt. This is Candice. We're Yellow Whistle. We are a digital advertising agency, and we started in 2016, mainly doing video production back in the day because that's what we started out knowing how to do. And so we did that until we started talking to some different mentors who encouraged us to start adding on some different services. And so we hired a business mentor that did Facebook and Instagram and had their own agency that built it to $1 million agency. And so she really just was able to talk us through how she got there, was able to give us some tips and tricks of what she's done to get there. And then, we just kind of went that route, started niching down to e-commerce. And it's over the time we've been able to get, we had first Candice was on just herself, then we brought me on, and then now we have a team of 6 at the moment. So.
Great. Do you want to say anything?
No, I mean, he covered it, but yeah, we've just kind of learned to niche down, and we love working with e-commerce brands, so online stores selling physical products. And we've just kind of been through a journey of starting out as a freelancer and just kind of taking on whatever projects I could find through networking and here in Lakeland. And then we're now at the point where we get all of our clients through Facebook and Instagram ads, which is kind of what we do for our own clients, is generate sales through those platforms. And that's how we get all of our clients at this point too. So it's kind of been a journey just to learn how to grow from being a freelancer and just kind of figuring things out, and then learning how to morph your services and grow with the marketplace, and then now scaling a team and what that looks like. But yeah, we love what we do.
Awesome. So like I said, we're going to talk a lot about pricing today, and Kristen mentioned we have a lot of conversations with our members, and some of the things that we hear our members struggling with is related to pricing, and a lot of times that's for a variety of reasons. Maybe they're not doing their research into their customer or their competitors. Sometimes they're actually not valuing their time properly. So at the end of the day, they have a service-based company and they offer their services and realize, oh, wow, I just made $1 an hour on that job. So, all of these things that factor into pricing. And so we have 3 businesses that are represented here, but we're going to focus on pricing for service-based industries, retail products. We're going to talk about even higher end products and services. So we're going to try to cover a lot, but again, please, if you have questions, save them for the end, and we'll be able to dive into other topics. And if something resonated with you on their backgrounds, you can also just throw out any question at that point too. So they're eager and anxiously awaiting, and Nikki's very nervous. So we're going to start with her naturally. So as you heard, Nikki started out at the farmer's market. She's moved into a brick and mortar retail location. So let's talk a little bit about the evolution of your pricing strategy. So from where you started, you grew, transitioned into that retail space. So maybe just highlight some of the valuable lessons you learned about pricing along that journey.
So pricing for me was about the profit, which should be probably for you. When I first started off, do I need to do anything particular? Is it good? I'm good, okay. I had a goal of just making $1,000 a month. That was it. It was going to help pay for kids to go to the school that they were in, and that's what I thought I needed to do. And so, I would buy something, and then I would make sure that I was, sorry, I got off track.
No, you're good. Keep going.
But when I started having a retail store, it was more of a backwards approach where I needed to look at how much money do I need to make in order for me to survive. So basically, there was a book that I had read, and you had asked me to, and I can't think of the name of it, but I think it's called Profit First, or is that what it is? So it's, pay yourself first, and then back in the money that you have in order to pay all your different various expenses. And that was really, really hard to do, because I would do things and make money and want to use it in a certain way and not pay myself. And you can't survive if you're not paying yourself. So as I grew and I had expenses, that was, a good thing to think through. I also had a rubric that I worked through, just not official, but I think it's just kind of a common sense thing of, what is the cost of the product? For me, when I first started off, I was purchasing a piece of furniture that I would find at an estate sale, on the side of the street, at Goodwill, and I would look to see, does this piece of furniture have, what's the cost of it? Obviously, the lower the cost was, the better. But did it have good bones to it? Is it going to have a perceived value? So that could be the way the drawers are manufactured and the way the poles are and things like that. So that was, the cost it would be, the perceived value that I could get from it once I transformed it with some paint and stylized it with a few lamps or whatever. And then demand. More so now in my business, having a retail store, demand. I mean, I only had one of something when I was at, one type of piece of furniture. But then I realized that long consoles were more popular than chest of drawers. And so the demand became, I could always get a little bit more money on a console because people are getting rid of their TV cabinets and they want, to have. And so then it became, I'm competing against other people to find those long, pretty pieces of furniture that I can transport, but I can, because of demand of that piece, I could always get more for it. And then the final rubric was like, what did I want to make hourly for myself? So am I thinking, I want to make $20 an hour. It's going to take me this much time to go find the piece, transport it to my house, paint it, then take it to the farmer's market, work at the farmer's market. Many times I only looked at the amount of time it took me to work on that project. This is a 6-hour project. I didn't take into consideration all the prep work it took me to find the piece of furniture and to drive over to Winter Haven to get it, and then to have the trailer to get it back and all those different things. So I, many times valued my time at a really low value because I wasn't thinking through all the work and effort that I was putting in there. But at the same time, I was selling something at the farmer's market, and the perceived value for that piece of furniture, because it's at a farmer's market, is much different than if it's in my retail store. So, knowing that, I had beautiful pieces down there, but I could get half of what I can get now.
So interesting. No, that was really great. Thank you for that story. Well, I had something, but I think we're going to get to it later. So we're going to move over to Stacy and kind of get service-based business perspective. So what is your current pricing strategy, and what are some of those factors that you consider in calculating some of your prices?
So for me, I try to keep it simple. Trying to keep it really simple. I just have a 5-step formula that I've stuck with from the beginning until now. I understand who my customer is, or who my targeted customer is. Second, I evaluate the relationship between the quality of their product and the quality of the service that I'm providing. 3, I always evaluate the amount of time that I have to put into the actual project or collaboration. And then 4 kind of tweaks into number 3. How much originality or how much creativity do I have to bring into it? Because if I'm doing a reprint job, I can't really charge the same amount that I would be doing if I'm starting on a collaboration from start to finish. So even evaluating that amount of time. And then 5, always, I think that every entrepreneur or business owner, you should always keep up with what's going on with your competitors. So understanding my competitors and what rates they're charging and how I can kind of either fill an additional void that they don't have, or if I need to kind of up my game to make sure that I'm providing, a service that's parallel to that to keep my price point at what it is, or if I want to increase it. But it's just as simple as that.
Stacy, do you want to just share with them a little bit about some of the types of clients you're working with?
Yeah, I always say that I'm blessed. I don't know what you guys' faith are. I thank God every day for the flexibility, I think is what I can label it as. I have clients from startups that may, say, be in Lakeland, Florida, to I have fashion designers in New York or LA that I work with. I work with a lot of, now through me collaborating with a TV reality star. She kind of opened up the way for me to gain a lot of exposure on Instagram. So now I work with a lot of celebrities and socialites, NFL players. I work with the Orlando Magic once a year with a collaboration, rappers, their girlfriends, the NBA wives. So it's kind of like a nice balance. So I have the fun and those that can spend a lot. And then I also have, where my actual passion was, where I can still service those that are startups and people who are just grinding from the beginning to kind of get to that level.
Great. Super interesting. If you ever have some free items that you get from those people, please feel free to share.
It comes with a lot of perks, fashion designers. I mean, I've been able to travel and go to Fashion Week. I was explaining to them in the room I've had where, Meek Mill's girlfriend, she had some packaging that was being used during Beyonce and Jay-Z. They had a big event where they were releasing music for a new artist, and she did custom packaging to kind of do some promo with her fashion line. And they put me on a plane to fly the packaging directly to Philadelphia to make sure that it could drive to New York. So, I mean, it comes with a lot of perks as well.
Awesome. All righty. So we're going to move over to Yellow Whistle. So you guys operate a service-based industry as well, but with that, you're working with a lot of e-commerce brands. And so when someone is pricing a product to sell online, what are some of those key factors that you think they should focus on in order to make sure that they're still coming away with a profit?
Yeah, so a lot of times when we're working with e-commerce brands, we bring them on as a client once we understand what their profit margins are, and then we need to understand what their cost per acquisition needs to be, like what their goal is for that. And obviously as advertisers, we can never guarantee we're going to get you a $20 CPA, cost per purchase, because there's so many elements that we don't control. So we're kind of looking to the client to tell us what is your goal. And the way that they're able to calculate that is understanding what their lifetime value is from a customer. So in the e-commerce space, their average order value might be $20, but they know that a customer might be coming back on a regular basis. So maybe their lifetime value is actually $100. And so they might be willing to break even with their cost per purchase initially with their advertising at $20, knowing that with the lifetime, they're going to be making $100. So we don't typically set what that goal is for them. We're looking to them to tell us what is that number for you in order to be profitable. One thing we have noticed though, just with Facebook and Instagram ads, is it's difficult to be profitable if your average order value is less than $50, just because of the typical pricing on the platform. So if we're working with a client and their average order value is like $20 or $30, we will work with them to create bundle offers. So we'll say, okay, can we create a bundle offer if they have multiple products? Maybe for this holiday that's coming around. Can you, if you're a book retailer, can you bundle many of your books together that have similar interests so that we can get that average order value above 50? Because we're seeing that that is going to produce a higher return on ad spend in the back end. So that's something that we're just pretty upfront with if we're working with the client and they're not really sure how to do that themselves. We'll create bundle offers and then do lots of testing to see what works, because you're not really going to know what works until you get out there and test it. So I would say know your CPA based on the lifetime value of a customer, and then get that average order value up if you can. If you can't, then I would say Facebook and Instagram ads is kind of a tough platform to work with, and maybe try some other platforms or more organic marketing, but that's kind of what we've seen based on our space.
Okay. Great. Can you give them some ideas maybe for some of that organic marketing, or maybe some things that you've seen successful if they are kind of on that startup stage?
Yeah. So, I mean, our bread and butter is Facebook and Instagram ads. That's what we know. But just based on what we've seen work for clients is obviously building up your Instagram account organically, selling products on the platform before you're putting money into ad spend. And some clients have also used Facebook Lives, and they sell via their Facebook page organically, which has worked really well. And then you might know of some more examples.
Yeah, I mean, there's also, on the creative side, we've seen a lot of people that have done really well. If they can get a lot of reviews, get a lot of review videos of people using their products, that's always going to be able to get more social engagement. And if they do that, then we can even use a lot of that on our end. The engagement, everything that they are getting, to be able to use that within our ads as well. So, yeah, I think reviews, even for us on our end, it's always been a huge thing for us.
Yeah, I just thought of another one too, is Facebook groups. We've had some clients that have built their accounts up from nothing to like 50,000 a month just using Facebook groups and getting potential customers into the group, and then they just sell via the group. And so when we start launching their ads, they already have a lot of that engagement and reviews like Matt was talking about. So it's just so much easier to get things rolling when there's already some engagement and your products are validated, and you just have some of that traction from the get-go.
Great. Well, as startups, I guess as humans, we always make errors. There's always learning opportunities. So, Nikki, why don't you tell us about some times or an example where you priced a product incorrectly? Maybe you overvalued or undervalued something.
Yeah, there's been times where I've purchased something, I mean, in the early days with furniture where it's such a great piece, and I bought it for too much. I purchased it for $200, and typically I should sell it at the market for like $250. And then I'll just, I'll still put time and effort in it, and I just keep I keep this piece and carrying it back and forth each week because I valued it, I'm going to sell it for $400 at the market. Well, that's just not going to happen. So an early lesson was just bite the bullet. You made a mistake, sell it, get rid of it, and move on. I've also, seen cash in people's hands, and they're like, "Oh, I'll give you this for it," and I'm like, "Oh, all right." When I go home and I think about it, I'm like, wait a second, I just paid myself $5 an hour for that because by the time I had, done so yeah, I've made those mistakes. Now with our brick and mortar, we still purchase furniture and we still paint it and sell it in the store. It went from probably 75% of my business now to maybe 20% of my business. It's a great staging tool. I love still having furniture there. It makes our store look comfortable and homey, and it's a way for me to stage all the merchandise that we bring in. But now our rubric is pretty much you buy it for $10, you double that cost, and you add 10% or whatever for shipping. And that's how typically the formula goes. A lot of retail or wholesalers that we work with, they have a price that you're not supposed to sell below, because the perceived value for their company and for their product, it needs to be. Do they come around to my store to see what I do? No, I'm not that big of a fish or whatever. But so I do know that I live in Lakeland, and that a lot of times if I double and add 10% to a lot of products, I'm not going to sell it in my market. And so I have to take a lower percentage on that. So that means I need to have a varied price point. That's one thing that I've learned is I need to have things that are on the lower end, I need to have things in the middle, and then I need to have the high-end things. And the high-end things are going to sit there longer, but as long as they're gorgeous and they look great and make my store look better, those little price point items have a bigger value because, I got it at this store that looks so pretty. So those are some of the lessons.
Do you want to talk earlier? We were just having a conversation about, Oxford Exchange versus your store and products. Do you want to just talk a little bit about that at all?
Yeah, so have y'all, who's been to Oxford Exchange in Tampa? It's a really beautiful store. It has a restaurant there and a what's the bar? The champagne bar. Yes. And coffee and all that. But it's just aesthetically pleasing. The building itself is pretty, and their merchandising is just really gorgeous. So when I go to market, which is a place where you go and you find all kinds of new merchandise, and it's so much fun, but always overwhelming. I just came back. I was there last week, and I always break down and cry because it's overwhelming. But I found some of their distributors of some of their product like several seasons ago. And so I brought it in thinking, oh, we're going to have an Oxford Exchange kind of feel. This stuff is so cool and great. It sat there forever. I don't tend to do sales at my store because I just have a philosophy about it, but I'll secretly go mark things down. I just change the price and you just don't know it. So now you know some secrets. If you've seen something and you're like, I swear that was like $200 last time I was here, and now it's It's because it wasn't moving and I just have to cut my losses and go. But, just because it's cool and beautiful at Oxford Exchange, Tampa is a much different market than Lakeland is. And what people are willing to spend $24 on, a pin, they're not going to do that in Lakeland. So I have to find something that's comparable, that looks just as cool and great, but at a lower price point.
Knowing your customer.
Knowing my customer.
There you go. Awesome. Okay, let's see. So Stacy, we want to talk a little bit about time valuation. So, how have you settled on a price for your time and making sure that you're factoring that in especially with such a creative process that you have?
Right. So mine, I guess, to piggyback a little bit off of yours, I don't feel like I've settled on pricing. I'm comfortable with my pricing right now. And I think it's a difference in life when you're comfortable versus settling. Because comfort, you can get uncomfortable and then things may need to go up, or you may get in a place to where you feel like, oh, well, you know what, I can lower my price because of the comfort that you have. So I'm at a really comfortable place right now with business. But I came back from Miami and just the shock of difference in the way that people value their brand and branding in Lakeland. Not that it's a bad thing because I'm from Lakeland, of course, but I just wanted more. I just knew that branding for any business, we help businesses get to the next level, and a business can't survive without good branding. So I knew that I was now the asset. So once I understood that I was the asset to a company, it allowed me the capabilities to start doing different things. So what I did as my own strategy with business is I didn't want to get stuck in a box where I was just limited to Lakeland. So I invested in myself, which ultimately invested in my business. So I attended events that were in New York. I would take a workshop in LA. I would align myself not only in the surroundings, but around people who I wanted to collaborate with or brands that I wanted to work for in those different areas. So now my face is familiar, my business card, my brand is familiar in these different areas, to where I got those collaborations. My portfolio started to get bigger. So now, even though I'm in Lakeland and I have my office here at Catapult, my rates are still going to be comparable to a graphic designer in New York, in Atlanta, in Texas, in LA. I have clients in the UK, I have clients in Australia. So I think because I did make that investment with connecting myself in different areas, and then a lot of what we do is visual based, it's digital. A lot of times, it gave me that capability to be able to do that. So I think, I guess to answer the question, how did I become, I got comfortable. I put myself in a place to where I was comfortable with how I price for design. And that was just from me connecting the dots in different areas and not limiting to myself to just this area. But that works for me because of the type of industry that I'm in. So if you have a brick and mortar in Lakeland, it may not be the right move, because people that are coming from New York might just drive in for the weekend and your price could fit them for the weekend. But then how do you sustain yourself for a long period of time? I'm not sure if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're going to do a quick mic change out. Sorry. Awesome. Thanks, Kristen. While she's doing that, we're going to hop over to Yellow Whistle and just talk a little bit about some online sales. So if you're selling a product online, there's definitely a lot of factors to consider, especially when it's not converting. So how can you identify with your customers if it's a pricing issue or another reason that their product isn't selling?
Yeah, I think for us, we look at all the data in the back end when we're doing all of our Facebook and Instagram ads, and we're able to see based on their cost per click, on their click-through rate, based on their add to cart costs. Like, we're able to see, kind of follow the trend and see like, okay, where is it dropping off at? And most of the time what we'll see is if it drops off by the time that they're adding to cart or initiating checkout and then they're not purchasing, it means that there's basically something happening on the website. Once they get to the website, like they're getting there easily, they're finding the right creative, getting there, but then once they get there, there's something that's throwing them off. And that could be, anything from the price to the user experience. There was one client one time that as we were testing this, we looked through and we went through the process to try and purchase something and realized in order to purchase something, you had to go through and create a full account and do all of that and then purchase, which totally threw everyone off and they weren't wanting to go through it. So there's always like little things like that could get in the way. But I mean, there's basically like on a website for e-commerce, 2 to 5% is like the amount that you're going to be converting. That's a good conversion rate for your e-commerce site. So we typically look to try and make sure that that's happening. And if it's not, then we're trying to see where the issue may be. If it's when we're doing a lot of testing, we try to test in different areas and not test everything all at one time. So if we're trying to test, is it the price? Then we'll test, different deals, different offers, different things to see if it's not selling. Then maybe if we add 10% off, maybe if we add 15, we'll try it in different segments, see what works the best. Sometimes things are overvalued, some things are undervalued. So it just takes time to figure out what works. We were talking about, there was a company from that we worked with that was on a Shark Tank called Pop It Pal. They made these random fidget things that were for people who really enjoy popping pimples. So it really worked well in different times. Like during Christmas, it sold really well, but the other times of the year, obviously it didn't sell very well. But they had like a smaller price point, so we had to try and encourage them to up it during most of the time of the year. But you have any other ideas?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it always just goes back to testing for us. We do work with a lot of startups too that are just getting started and they don't have data. And so we try to tell them, hey, we have no clue of knowing if this is going to sell. So we're going to have to do testing for the first month, gather all of the data, and then see where things are converting. And then just like Matt said, if they're not meeting that standard of that 2 to 5% conversion rate on the website, that's when we start analyzing, is it the price? Is it like a huge shipping cost? Is it the checkout process, the design of the website, and things like that? If it is the price, then sometimes we'll recommend that a client bumps up their prices, but ultimately we're not necessarily in control of that. So we just try to present recommendations along the way, knowing that that's their business and it really is up to them at the end of the day if they want to change their pricing. But overall, we've just learned not to really go with our gut on things, but to really go with the data. And so we're analyzing the data from the get-go and then letting the data tell us where the issue potentially is.
That's great. I don't encounter sometimes a lot of entrepreneurs that are utilizing data to make those decisions, and it's really important because there's a lot of factors that could be contributing to a lost sale. So data-driven decisions, and it sounds like a lot about user experience too, which is important too. Great, thank you for that. Stacy, want to come back to you a little bit and talk about the importance of knowing who your target customer is. And I think, with my conversations with all of them, I think the great thing about them is they all really do have a good understanding of their target customer. And I think that really shines through in their pricing strategy. But that's so important because they're informing a lot of your decisions. And so how, for you with an upscale brand, working with a lot of these huge clients and celebrities, how did you utilize your price to communicate the value that you have? And how did you get to that price that represents you well?
I'm making sure it's working first. For me, I'm a really big, I just get attached to people. So I also, even though I do work with a lot of upscale brands, I do like to always emphasize that majority of my business is startups. And I got to a place to where I was comfortable knowing how much of an asset that I was to people. And a lot of times, even with the smaller brands, in order for them to make an investment that was worthwhile for my business to even pick up their project, was just simply educating the customer. I think a lot of people get super attached to even the initial consultation that takes place when they contact my business. It's because a lot of education is given in the beginning. So I feel like it's easy to for me to say what my price is now and not be afraid of it and be comfortable with it, because now you know what comes with the territory. So you came for a logo design, but you know what? A logo also includes a branded style guide. Every business should have a style guide, whether you're working with me or your t-shirt printer, or if you're collaborating with another company, whether you're having an investor look at your designs, you need a brand. I call it a brand Bible, but you really need a brand style guide. I provide a legal document from my business to yours to let you know that I release all rights and ownership of that design to you. A lot of people don't even know that they should have those things. So just through having like open and intimate conversation and letting them know, you know what, well, this is what I bring to the table. This is what you have availability to. This is how it's going to potentially help your business. And then also, as you grow over time and you start to build a real portfolio, people have to understand that, you know, I don't bring myself down because I do work with a lot of high profile clients. When these smaller brands attach themselves or say, you know, Simply Creative Design and worked on my project, people naturally remember the bigger names too. So also understanding that, you know, even though you may be a startup, you associating your brand with my business now also associates you with the NFL player that just got posted, or with the rapper that just had an invitation created, or so forth. So that's really how I've come up with my pricing.
Yeah, earlier when we were in the other room, you also talked about like how there's been some customers that naturally over time just haven't been the best fit because of the way that you design. And do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so and I think that that's a really important part to touch on, is understanding your own targeted audience. I think a lot of times as service-based people or businesses, we care so much about the customer and the customer's needs that sometimes we kind of overlook our own needs. And even myself, I burnt myself out in the beginning. I worked with everyone and anyone that reached out, and it wasn't a good fit. I started to realize that, you know, some brands just really don't need a luxury look. It just doesn't make sense. Their customers are now afraid to approach the brand. They're losing money. So I started to weave out and realize what projects made my business what fit my business well, what made me feel good when I was designing. Now that I have a team, what makes sense with the team, and so forth. And then as I started to understand my own target or the business's targeted audience, it made it a lot easier to weave out, you know, certain collaborations. You win some, you lose some. Sometimes it's just not the client for you, and being comfortable with that. But the ones that are for you, then now it makes sense with the pricing that you're charging, what they're getting in return, and so forth.
That's great. Thank you. Going back to Nikki, you have a lot of products that you sell in your store, which is super fun. And I think that's one of the unique elements about your store, and something that keeps everybody coming back because it's always new and exciting. So as you look for products for your store, what's the, how do you determine the prices that you're going to sell these at? You know, what kind of profit margins are you looking for? All those things around strategy versus the products like the furniture that you sold, and that's your products, but then also the products that you're selling that you're purchasing elsewhere.
A lot of it has to do with what the market will bear. So the Oxford Exchange example, but also just in general in retail, like a home and gift store like mine, doubling your price and adding for that shipping cost is a really easy rubric to work through. The furniture aspect of it is doing competitive shopping to see what's, you know, out there. And even going to other markets, I can, you know, find good ideas if I, you know, travel and see product that I like. But I always look at what they're charging for it, and it's like, oh, I love that, but Lakeland will not, you know, do that. So just knowing what your market is and you know, working backwards, like I said before, what do I need to make in order to survive was easier to do on a smaller scale, but now we're you know, we've kind of figured out the formula. So now it's, you know, how can we grow? What can we do to create the next interesting thing. That's the problem we're having now, is just how can we keep finding product and how can we keep, changing things over. But that means what I buy needs to sell. And so buying low and selling low for me has been kind of the key, is to, people that can afford to purchase higher things, they still love to buy things at a low cost. But I can't do that and not make money. So you have to be wise about it. Selling things, inexpensive or cheap isn't the goal. It's to make money and to be able to pay the bills. And I do love the part that I have a platform to invite other members of the community into our building, and so that they can, have a presence in the community. And I think it makes our store look better because we are so Lakeland centric.
Definitely. So off of that, you want to go ahead?
I also wanted to say, sometimes because I am a creative, what I've learned from traveling to different cities and stuff, and I think what keeps Lakeland so far in the back, is that we don't have a lot of experiences. And when you don't have an experience to relate to, then you kind of sort of don't know that something else can happen. Because there's a lot of people that have started businesses in Lakeland, and I'm coming off of Nikki's point, but my nails, which need to get done now, but I literally go to the same nail shop, and I've visited other nail shops, but just because I can drink champagne while I'm getting my nails done, I'm going to pay $38 to get a nail job that probably is going to cost me $25 to really get it done somewhere else. So I think how we can start making the change is creating these different experiences for people. And then it will allow us to start changing not only price, but even the products that we have. Because when you go into these bigger cities, it's really just an experience that you're flattered with, and people get caught up on aesthetics. And that's just a part of branding that can kind of bring another element to your business and help you grow in different areas too. Because I haven't been to your store, but just the way you describe it, it's like, I'm probably going to be at Nikki's store one of these days pretty soon. But imagine if you came to shop for a piece of furniture from the Goodwill, but when you go in, I don't know how the ambience is there, but the music is there, and maybe there's a live band one day that's in there while you're shopping. It just creates these different things to people mentally in their head, which is all like a psychological game, because again, I do branding for a living, so I play a lot with the way the brain thinks and perceives things, which sometimes isn't really even true. And I even gave the example of when we were talking about in the room toothpaste. The Dollar Tree sells Colgate for $1, Walmart sells it for $2.88, and Publix sells it for $6.99. But when you go in Publix, you feel like you're supposed to pay $6.99 for the same toothpaste that if you went to the Dollar Tree, your first mind for me is like, I'm getting in and I'm getting out. But when you're in Publix, the aisles are big, the people are friendly, you can ask a question, you can be in the poultry lane trying to get a pack of chicken, but now when you need to go on the other side, someone's willing to walk with you hand in hand all the way to the other end of the store, so you feel like what they're offering you makes sense. And I think if we started doing more of that, which I pray for, if not, Lakeland is going to just dry up and get so boring, but I hope that people get more in tune with creating like these little experiences for people, so that way we can start doing more in our city.
Thank you. Yeah. So just coming back, though, I did want to touch on one other thing from Nikki. So Nikki, you have worked with a lot of local people, and we're so grateful that you're doing that for a lot of entrepreneurs, even some here at Catapult. So I didn't want to move off of that yet, but can you talk about like how you've worked with some of these just starting out and working with them, maybe even Bump's story or somebody else's story of how you worked with them on just bringing their product to life, but also pricing maybe through that?
So Bump Galetta was one of the first ones when we opened the store that first year. He had been written up in the Lakelander, and his visual art was similar to something that I had seen in other cities with, Paris, and not that I was traveling there, just pictures of the Eiffel Tower and the Colosseum and just these local landmarks. And I'm like, we need to do something like that for Lakeland. We have some really cool landmarks, Southgate being one of our biggest ones. So we just commissioned with him. And so called him in, and it was something that we couldn't afford to do just outright. So we, worked with him. What would it cost if you, made an original piece of art, and then we could sell the original piece of art and then make prints of the others. And so he basically set the price for us. We allowed him to do that, and we allow all our artists to set the price. The one thing with Bump that's a little bit different is he brings us the art. A lot of the vendors, they all bring it to us, but they don't have original pieces, maybe. So they set their price like, who did we have a couple different girls that do cards. So they do, Rebecca, what's her name? Furman, yes. So she brings in her art. She has it in a lot of different locations. And when she brings it in, I tell her, give us whatever price you'd like on it, and we add to it. So instead of me getting 50% on something that I would traditionally sell, I only get 30%. And that allows me to still offer, because we sometimes do promotions where, if you're a veteran or in the military, you get 10% off. We do other promotions where you get 10% off. And so that's kind of built in there, but they still get their full allotment to it. But that being said, as a business owner, I have a lot of artists that approach us about being in our space, and the space is very, very valuable. So it's super, super hard to pick and choose. Like, the aesthetic has to fit with the store, the feel and the energy and their audience, like I want them to promote it. And if they bring something in and it's at a price and I have to add 30% to it because I need to make money on that space that I'm giving up for them to put their stuff, because otherwise I'd be selling other stuff there. If it prices it out of the market, it's already a good price if they were selling it somewhere else. But once I add my value to it, then it's, I can't sell it. So it's something that I always have to consider, and unfortunately sometimes disappoint people because it either doesn't fit our store, or it's just not going to sell, or we give it a go and just see. And it kind of tells them, on their own, that it's just not working in our market, kind of thing.
That's great. That's super great considerations for people if they are thinking about going to a retail environment, just some things that you're looking for as well. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So another question for Yellow Whistle. How do you communicate value of what you do if there's an initial bit of sticker shock maybe around the pricing that you give to a customer?
Yeah, that's a great question, because that does happen often. When we were getting started and I was just a freelancer, the pricing was much different. But then once you're starting to scale a team and you bring team members on and you're wanting to be profitable at that point, you kind of do have to grow your pricing and make sure you're communicating that. But the key that we use to really be able to bring on clients and to communicate that it makes sense to work with us is sharing case studies. When I was first getting started, we didn't have any results to really show. And so I was trying to convince people to give me a chance. And our way of doing that was a completely different pricing model. So we actually used a performance-based pricing model when we first got started. So I would convince people to bring me on as their advertiser, and then I wouldn't get paid until we worked together for a month and I took a percentage of sales. And so that worked really, really well in the beginning, just to get some clientele and to get some case studies. And then as we were trying to grow, we wanted to work more off of a retainer model, which it was way easier to be able to scale and to know what's coming for the next month, and to make sure you're getting paid ahead of time before you're doing the work as well. So we moved to that model, and now we have case studies that we can show people when they're interested in working with us. We can share, this is our price, which might seem scary, but if you're wanting to make $50,000 a month in revenue or $100,000 a month in revenue, it shouldn't really scare you from our, charging what we charge, because of the value that we're providing. So we never really share the hourly amounts. We believe in value-based pricing. and just proving why we're valuable. And if we can get you to X amount in revenue, which is the goal, even though we can't guarantee it, that's the goal, and we've done it before for other clients, then that's typically what convinces people to work with us.
And I think you said you have something coming out that might help
That's
for other
right.
clients. See,
I totally
remembered.
forgot. So this is actually really great timing that we're here because we have an online course that we're launching. So, we found that not everybody can or is in a place in their business to work with us one-on-one. And we kept hearing that, especially with 2020 pandemic, things that were happening. There's so many startups that were launching and they just needed easier ways to get their business off the ground before kind of more of that hefty agency fee. And so we're launching an online course February 1st. And we're taking everything that we've learned working with Facebook and Instagram ads specifically for e-commerce, and we're putting it together in a training. It's like 50 different videos. It covers the basics of Facebook and Instagram. There's a calculator that will help you figure out what you need to spend to get X result, what your CPA will be. And we walk you through how to optimize your campaigns, how to do testing that's profitable for you, scaling. So we cover the whole process. And when it launches, it's going to be $497, but now it's half off if you go ahead and buy it before it goes live. So,
and how did you come up with the price for the course?
by listening to customers, really.
Hey.
That's how we've always come up with our pricing, is just knowing what is out there in the marketplace and then getting on sales calls and just hearing where people are at and what they're willing to spend. And so our business developers would ask people, if you have a course, what are you willing to spend for that? What does that look like for you? And we just kind of kept hearing the same numbers. So that just kind of gave us a guide for what to price.
Great. Well, I can ask them questions, but I figured it'd be nice to open it up to the audience. So anybody have questions for any of them or a specific person up here? Feel free to raise your hand. I know we also have people online. So if you want to ask a question online, we have some people in here that can moderate for that as well.
I'm going to walk the mic to you. For the people online, but agreed, you're loud.
So I was going to ask Nikki, just when you have in your bricks and mortar store, when people put their items there, two things. One, is it like the Rafa? My wife brings me in your store every single Saturday. But so on the Rafa stuff, do they set that up and manage it, or do they just sell you the product? Number one, that's the first thing. And the second thing, are you buying their product and then putting a markup, or are you consigning their product? And right, are they just putting it there and you get paid when it sells, or
Is this specifically Rafa?
Well,
Or
any of
anything?
just curious, like for any vendor that's in there.
So Rafa started off, my sister started Rafa 10 years ago. And when I started Scout and Tag, I had a partner who had Simple Vintage. And so we opened up as Simple Vintage with Scout and Tag. And my partner bought Rafa from my sister.
Okay.
And so it's kind of like a family thing. So it's like grandfathered in. She rents space from me. And I ring up all her things, and basically she gets it. The benefit for me when we first invited Rafa into our store was it had a big following, and it was smart for us to bring them in and not take a percentage because it was bringing people to our store that wouldn't have been in there, and it continues to be a driving force. With the other vendors, they once their item sells, I take my 30% and then they get paid, and I do it on a bi-monthly payout.
Thank
you.
All right.
Hi, I'm Athena. I have a business called Inspiring Fitness. We do online fitness coaching for women. And I guess my question and why I wanted to come here in terms of pricing is, I think a while ago I figured out my price point, and I've had the perception that at this point it started bothering me because I feel like I haven't increased my prices in a while, and I haven't, maybe over a bit over 3 years, and it's still it's been growing because I have more clients, but at some point I'm like, okay, I need to increase my prices. And So the question is for the ones that, have the same service for longer time, how do you keep up with having, current pricing? Is it like yearly, or you just kind of wait and then when it's time to change, then you're like, okay, it's, 50% more, 30% more. Like that's where I'm kind of, having like doubts about like, how should I do this next step? Of course, I love the idea of like having maybe current clients grandfathered in a way and be like, okay, you guys keep this price for another year. But also, how do I make this jump? Because I've just found reasons to not increase my prices, and because clients keep coming and they love the product, but then at some point you need to do that. So
I can speak to that real quick. So we do something similar. You mentioned like the grandfathered in. So whenever we bring on a new client, we start with a 3-month commitment. And so that price stays the same for the 3 months. And then after that, we try to pitch a longer contract. So whatever they get in the beginning, it typically stays the same. That's just how it's worked for us. But we have tested different pricing. And I would say the way that it's worked for us is, like we said earlier, testing. We just test everything. But we know that our business developers who are pitching deals with us, we know what their close rate is. And so when we've wanted to bump up prices, we would test it for like 3 to 4 weeks and then take a look at the close rate. And we just did this in November, actually. November is typically a weird month for us because clients are already working with agencies. It's like too late to get in and do their Black Friday sales. So we know just based off of history, it's going to be a rough month. So we wanted to try to do like a discount or an offer or whatever. So we tried that and we lowered our pricing a little bit as a discount, and it only increased the close rate by like 1%. So we look back and we're like, that wasn't worth it. It wasn't profitable for us. But even if you're wanting to increase your prices, I would say test it out for a few weeks and see how that goes. Like if you're pitching, I don't know what your process is like, but test it and then compare what that close rate was before, and then make decisions moving forward, I guess.
Also, can there be a new added value?
I was just thinking
That there's a reason why there's an increase, is because now they get something else. They get a subscription now to a magazine or to your blog, or they get discounts with, different products that maybe make sense to your business.
Yeah, because I see a lot of businesses will hurt ourselves with the idea that as time goes, that things should go up. But if there's no, like you said, added value, then you have customers that may be paying $50, but you have 100 of them. And then now you increase your price for just a reason that maybe I've been in business for 3 years and I should. And then now you lose those 100 clients, or you only have 25. And then now you're still going to have to bump your rate back down. So I think if you want to increase it because you feel like now you're a veteran in your field and you have more value, then just explain the value that you have. It's really simple. I think sometimes we make it more difficult than we really have to. And a lot of it is just, I guess, common sense is not really common sense. But if you're adding more, then you should be spending more. That's the way, if there's more quality being added in. So it may require you to get creative every few months, because you literally could increase your price every month if you wanted to. It's just you're adding more things, or maybe something new is happening that, the person can understand, okay, this is why the price is increasing. But if you just increase it just because you feel that you should, then you may end up losing some customers that are like really committed to your brand itself.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar, but like if you're doing new customers, they don't know what your previous prices were. So as long as you can say, like, make sure that they know that this price has the value for it. Like we could double our prices tomorrow, and if we can share and make them believe like this is the value for it, then that's, that will work. It's all about making sure. And I think for us, when we're the one doing everything, when we're the one doing the work, sometimes we devalue ourselves a lot easier than anyone else would. And so it's harder sometimes for ourselves to try and put our value up and make our value look even higher because we see ourselves lower in what we're doing. But I think as we continue to like share like with us, like sharing what we have done for people, what has happened before, that just continues to allow people to see more of a value and allows you to keep growing it.
I think that's why, I use my clients on my platforms before. So we have, I have a team, so we have 400 clients. $50 and $90. Thank you. $50.99. So maybe if I lose half of my clients, but I charge them twice, like I'm okay with that. It's, I can serve them better. So I think I love the idea of justifying somehow, like, okay, how am I going to serve them better? But at the same time, I do need to, because like all my platforms, like they all increase their prices every year.
And it's just as simple as that. Just saying that, like, for instance, my boyfriend has a brick and mortar. He owns a barbershop, and it's a really nice barbershop in Lakeland. It's one of the nicest ones aesthetically when you go in and just the feel of it. But when COVID hit, he had to pay for all these like high-tech ventilation systems to come in, these steamers to come and clean the environment. Now they have to, it requires face masks. So if you don't have one, I have to provide you with one to get a service and so forth. But it was just as simple as that. Haircut price goes up now because now we have to do XYZ to make you feel comfortable, to make sure you're safe. And people didn't even complain. I think as long as you're educating them, then I don't think any of that will matter. Even if you're letting them know, if I told someone, hey, it's costing us more because times have changed and platforms you may not use the word platform. Maybe you give it some other thing that's happening with business and that's increasing by a little bit, then they're probably going to be okay with the increase that you're having to give them as well. But I would just educate them on, why things are happening.
Thank you, everybody.
Melissa, I have one online. Does yours go off of what they were just talking about? Okay, I'm going to go online. Pause. Also, major bummer. We had this whole thing planned today because this is a fireside chat. And we had this whole thing that we planned to have a fire up there and I forgot. And then I remembered and you guys were talking and I was like, but if I throw a fire up there, it's going to be so awkward. So welcome to the now fireside chat. Gosh. Okay, so this question's online. It's from Angie Ruff. She owns Compass Blending. I don't know if you guys know her. She's awesome. So she says, you mentioned pricing with regards to what the market will bear. I've done the market comparison to similar products. How do you handle the ethical dilemma of knowing you can mark your product up 5 times the cost and people will pay that?
I can share something. So one of our values with Yellow Whistle is integrity, and we're always talking about that with our team. And this is something we're always facing because we have some clients that are like, well, you guaranteed us this result, and we always remind them we don't guarantee anything. And I think it's important as a business owner to be confident in yourself and your prices, and that running a business it's not bad to charge for what you deserve. And so I don't think it's an ethical issue at all to charge what you feel like you need to charge in order to run your business and serve your clients well and serve your customers well and to grow your team and to make a living for yourself. So I don't think it's an ethical issue at all. I would just be confident whatever that price is and see if it works.
I think on with that, business is all about risk, and you're taking on the risk normally of buying a lot of product, buying a lot of things to get the price, and then you're selling it for a lot more. So there's that side of it. Like they could easily go and try to buy a bulk amount of that stuff and get that price if they wanted to. But part of business is, you're taking on some of the risk in order to be able to get some of that reward.
I would add in just a little cute part, and then at the end of the day, if you charge and you're comfortable with the value of the product itself, you can charge that high number. And then it's always easier for the brain to digest that I'm going to give you a sell when you have to give a sell versus you having to convince a person that now something that was $10 should be $50. But if something is $50, I can cut a sale and say, hey, we have a flash sale and giving 50% off. And it's easier for you to say, you know what, I'm getting a sale versus now I have to teach you why it should be a higher price than what it is. So I would say always go into things with the price that you feel like the real value is into it, and be confident in that. And then that way, if you have a client, because which sometimes I do from time to time, there's a brand that comes by that I just really want to work with that individual. I really believe in the brand, and it's easier for me to tell them, hey, you know what? I'm going to give you 20% off because I believe in your business or your product, versus me telling someone else that it was an $800 package. And then now all of a sudden that you came around, I'm trying to convince them that, hey, this is a $3,500 package. It just doesn't make sense. It probably can make sense, but I think it's easier when you just set the price to what you really think the value is. And then you can always bring things down, and it's easier to bring them down and people feel comfortable with it versus you trying to scale it back up.
I had a question for you, Nikki. You was talking about wholesale pricing. How do you determine, I guess, like what would be, say, like your price as far as you selling it to somebody else, but you're still making a profit off of it, but not to where they won't be able to make anything off of it? That makes sense.
So yeah, I don't do a whole lot of wholesale pricing of things other than the furniture that we sell, and we do some art pieces. But I own the store, so but it makes it a little bit easier. But say your question again.
Like, how do you come up with like a
Well, I guess, your cost of what it is, what you want to make.
but without?
Yeah, per hour, like how much is it costing you to do this? From a standpoint of the investment that you have to make in your time, the equipment, the housing, the marketing of it, the portrayal of it, what's the word, branding of it. All those things have to have an actual physical dollar amount to it that you can figure out. And then you have to see what is the market going to bear. So if it costs you $5 to make something, but the market is willing to to purchase it at $15, I say you do it at 15 because someday you're not going to want to be standing there selling it. You want someone else to be making it for you so that you can still sell it at that $15, but now you're going to have to pay these other people to make it for you. So you have to build that into your cost of the fact that you don't want to always be having to do the work. You want to eventually pass it on and still let it come back.
Is there kind of building off of what she was saying, is there a typical profit margin that people like a store like yours would put on a product so that they can keep that in mind? Is there also pricing?
Like when I go to market, if I'm buying a pillow and they're selling it to me for $12, I typically will take that and double it, so $24, and add for shipping. Things can come from all over the place. They could be charging me 10% shipping. They could be charging me 25% shipping. So I just do a flat 10% to add on to that shipping cost. And that's, so I might sell that $12 pillow for $24.95 now. So that's typically what I do. Now that wholesaler, they are selling it to me for $12. When I was at market, my big goal was to, I can go into these places and having the manufacturer of that pillow selling it for $6 versus them selling it to another store at $12 and then them selling it to me, So I try to find the actual manufacturer of things rather than the in-between distributor person. That helps keep prices down. But still, if I get it at $6 and I know that someone's going to value that pillow at $24, I'm going to sell it for $24. Because there's other things that I'm going to have to value at much less. So you have to go back and forth. Please still shop at my store. Be like, I know what this is worth. Right, yes.
So I'm Steve, and I do have a question, but I wanted to comment off of Athena's question. We're a nonprofit, so it's maybe a little different, but we've raised our prices many times over the years. And just to give you an idea, at one point you could join the LEDC, the Lakeland Economic Development Council, for $250. The minimum today is $2,500. So we've really increased that price over the years. And the maximum was $5,000, and today the maximum is $50,000. What happens when you increase is you like you said, you lose people, and they're not going to be a member anymore, but you're going to get other people, and you have to be comfortable with that. And so earlier you weren't comfortable. I don't want to leave the other people behind, but that's okay. They'll find somebody else in that price range that provides that kind of service, and you're upgrading your service, as Nikki was telling you, provide more value. You already are worth more than you were 2 years ago because you know more, you add more, you've got more experience. So you have to be confident and do that. And it's scary to jump off the ledge, but you can do that. My question is, and I don't know if this is for Yellow Whistle, but we've had some entrepreneurs come through Catapult over the last 7 years that their online sales platform is Amazon. And they find, and we don't need to give names, but what happens is they get into that gerbil wheel and they realize at some point that their cost, is a certain thing, and it's costing them 60% of whatever the product, sales price is, and they're not making any money, and they're having to sell more and more product at no profit. They can't make it. And so what they come to us and say, we need to open up our own website so we can sell through our own and not get killed. Even at our launch, there was a company on there that uses, what do they use? Yeah, do you eBay or one of the other platform for airplane parts? eBay. They charge 17% or 18%, right? And you want to start your own website. So bottom line is, that doesn't seem very realistic, but maybe through Facebook advertising and other things. So just talk about that, because there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are doing that and they think they're doing great and they're making no money, and Amazon is making the money.
Definitely. Yeah, that's a big thing. So we've had a lot of different people who were either on Amazon, we're doing stuff through Etsy, eBay stuff, and then they're wanting to make that transition. We love Shopify. So if anyone is wanting to go on Shopify or wanting to do that, it's just with Facebook and Instagram, they just make it really easy to make sure you're tracking everything correctly, make sure that it automatically allows you to be able to have everything set from the get-go. Other platforms, sometimes there's a lot of issues and different things that happen, and you can't really tell what's actually happening in there very well. So we really like Shopify. There's a lot that you can do with it. So if you are going to go that route, then I would say Shopify is the place to go. But yeah, with Amazon, one of the tricky things is you can't place your pixel on Amazon's website the same way that you would be able to on your own website. So there have been people who came to us and they were like, hey, I've been selling a bunch on Amazon. I've been sending all of my traffic from Facebook to Amazon. And we're like, cool, there's nothing we can see from that, because once they leave Facebook and go to Amazon, that's where it all ends. We can't see anything from there. So data to us is king. We have to see the data to know where we're going to move, what changes we're going to make. So that's where we've always drawn people to start going that direction. And then as we see the data, we're able to make the changes we need to get them to a better return and just continue growth. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to control. If you're on Amazon, they're controlling your business in a lot of ways. And so the minute they want to up their prices or their chunk of what they receive, they can do that. And you're just kind of having to sit by and be passive and let that happen. So yeah, like Matt said, a lot of our clients have moved from Amazon, or maybe they still sell a little bit on Amazon, but they're starting to gain their own presence on their website and then just kind of start to scale that up, which is probably the safest way to do it. So you're not getting rid of all of your Amazon sales. So that's what I would recommend. Use Shopify, start using Facebook ads to drive traffic, and eventually move your business over to your own website, and you control your business a little bit more and keep more of that profit, which is ultimately the goal in business. So.
Sure.
All I want to say is thank you for sharing tonight. Not that we're over, but to come up here and give us your time and your wisdom and your talents, treasures, and secrets is going to help Lakeland build to become the cool place to have experiences. So thanks for doing that.
All right, I think we have two more. Root, you have one?
I don't have a question, but I kind of wanted to add Steve's answer to Athena's question. I think one thing we all can agree on is, as an entrepreneur, we want to make a lot of money and create a lot of profit. But the only way we are going to do that to solve massive problem for our clients. So I think we continuously need to remind our clients that what problem we are solving for them. Once they start forgetting what problem we are solving for them, we just gonna be just the other company that they're gonna came across the Facebook or Instagram. But if you keep reminding them, this are the problem I'm solving, you can't put a value to it. Like they will pay as much as you ask for. You will be ask for the moon and you will be surprised how many times you'll get it.
Thanks, Root. All right, Garrett.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. So a lot of you guys already have like a market. So what if the market kind of doesn't exist yet? Like say you're selling insurance to somebody. No one thinks they're going to get in a car accident, but statistically it's going to happen. Can you change the target customer's mind to need that service, or should you let them come back to you and stop wasting your time trying to like change their mind?
Are you saying specifically for advertising for like that type of industry? Or?
Yeah, just like something that they don't think they need, but like statistically it's there. It's going to happen, but like they don't think it's going to happen sort of thing. Like selling prevention as a service.
Mm. Yeah, it is harder. So with a lot of what we're doing, we're working with a lot of e-commerce, so fashion brands. We've worked with different things that are almost preventative in the fact of like, we were talking earlier, but there's like a little nutritional thing that you can shake on for your kids to make sure that they get their vitamins or get enough of their veggies in. So that's kind of preventative, but for the most part, I think it's just depending on how you're marketing. I don't know if Facebook and Instagram is the best way for that. Maybe for Google ads or some other places where you're searching for that sometimes, or there's it's more of something that you've seen a history of what you've needed in the past. I don't know. You have?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because we don't have a lot of experience there, to be honest, with that type of more like lead gen sort of campaign. But I would say if someone is selling something like that, you would want to advertise more in an educational way and provide value. So instead of trying to get someone to purchase something right away, which isn't really going to happen, you would have a much longer sales funnel. So you might want them to opt in to book a call with you, and then you educate them as to how you can help or what they need to avoid. So like I said, that's not really our realm of experience, but I would say typically you'd probably want to start with education and providing value first, and then it's going to be a longer process to close someone.
Maybe one more if anybody's like really dying to ask a question. Okay, cool. No need to freak out about it. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Carissa. I'm trying to articulate this well. I hope it makes sense. So I feel like you've kind of been alluding to that Lakeland is, it is a bit of a small town, but it's also growing a lot. We want it to be like the cool town, but at times it feels like it's kind of in a box that we don't want it to stay in. So specifically with like design, home decor, that kind of realm, how do we find this balance between meeting our audience and making that profit and those prices, but also staying true to our brand? So like if it's possible, how can we like push the envelope and also shape the design culture of a town like this that's developing so fast?
I think that's like a struggle that I go through, and I think more involvement with like me personally on social media, engaged in my products or with my furniture or just from a person. I think translating a message is going to be the big way to do it. And having the things from the communities that we would like to see reflected here, bringing it and exposing people to it is what we can do the best. And I mean, the experience that we create does allow the value of something to go up. It's just that balance of you don't want to be so married to your brand that if you step away from it, the brand falls. So it's kind of like you have to create something and help it to kind of snowball into its own thing. But I think you definitely just have to be an active part of it and be visually engaging and educating the community.
Yeah, and I just think as people, we have to relate things to things. We're not just born with these ideas. I didn't know how cool the fashion industry was until people started giving me cool experiences in the fashion industry. So I also think it's kind of like a responsibility as we grow and we evolved and we gain this insight and these experiences. Because I am in Lakeland now, I feel like it's my responsibility to share those experiences too, whether it's just through me posting on social media, a collaboration that may have happened with someone somewhere else. And then now through just that visual dialogue, they can experience something new. Like some people didn't even know like how far packaging can take their business just from doing nice packaging. But I just think the more also I think a lot of people in Lakeland just don't go outside of Lakeland. Like they don't go anywhere. They don't do a lot of things. But I think if more people were to like figure out what makes this thing trendy or cool, and then maybe it takes you taking a trip to that place. And then now it took even myself going to restaurants in Atlanta, sitting down to have dinner and understanding like, okay, this is how it's supposed to feel on a date night, you know, having dinner with someone. So if I was to open a restaurant, my take on a restaurant would be totally different because now I have an experience and I bring it back to Lakeland, I share it. But I think if we expand ourselves a little bit more, and then if we start sharing, because sometimes people get caught up in not wanting to share because this whole competitive thing in different industries, but if we share more of what we know here, I think it'll help us start to grow a lot in Lakeland too, because a lot of stuff is just fluff at the end of the day. It really is. Things just look pretty. They sound nice. The way that you know, if I was in a department store and someone said the coat was named Luxury Air and it's $699, but it has 6 buttons, and then there's a jacket on the next rack that maybe has 4, and this one is called Tommy Boy, and it's $16.99. Naturally, I'm thinking that Luxury Air, just because of the word play or whatever, it makes it more expensive. But in reality, it's the same coat. The functionality is doing the same thing. So I think if we kind of like play off of that a little bit more and just give new experiences to the city, then it'll help us kind of sort of get on those levels that some of these other bigger cities have as well. And it's just fluff at the end of the day. It's just fluff.
I want to say too, I feel like Lakeland has come such a long way. Yes. I came down, I'm from Kentucky originally, and I came down for school in 2008. And there was like nothing to do back then. We would go to like Walmart for fun. And I noticed over the years, the culture started shifting. And I think it's because a lot of the business leaders in the area, it's like the culture just completely transformed. And like, I think the farmers market was a big part of that. So I think Lakeland has come a long way. I think it's really cool. And I think there are different pieces of culture in Lakeland that would buy high scale things or are trendy. You just kind of have to know where to find those people and sell to those people. So.
Yeah, and to add off of that, I mean, I agree. I'm also from out of town, and Lakeland has transformed over the years. And I know a lot of us have that same experience. And that's also a lot of the reason why some of us are here and have decided to stay here. But I would add, you know, businesses like yours and a lot of the businesses at Catapult and entrepreneurship in general, I think is really changing the fabric of our community. And, having these cool hip places that we can go to, like Scout and Tag or the Joinery or wherever in town that you guys like to hang out, that really is transforming our community. And, you talked a lot about experiences. For us, for Catapult, this was one of those experiences that we had seen on our different travels across the US. And we said, why can these big cities have it and Lakeland can't? And so that's why we're here today. And that's what's really exciting about being here in this room with all of you is we found those experiences. We're trying to make it fit here for Lakeland and grow it here, just like you guys are doing with your businesses. And so I think there's a lot of exciting growth on the horizon for Lakeland, and it's really because of you guys. And so we're excited about how entrepreneurship is really just changing the fabric of Lakeland. And that's why we're here. We want to support you. And so please let us know how we can continue doing that. But thank you for sharing. Stacy mentioned that we need to continue doing things like this and sharing so that we can continue to grow together. So thank you all for sharing. And I think we'll wrap up with that. And let's give our speakers a big round of applause.